You know, as movie critics and SCS and historians, we always debate amongst ourselves who is the greatest box office attraction of all time. Well, in the modern era, of course, you got Tom Cruise, you got actors in the Marvel and sometimes DC or Star Wars series. But really, there's only one, and there will only be one. When John Wayne became a box office sensation after what he called these Western movies of the 1930s, he became so popular that it really took him a quarter century to fall off the map, and the only reason it happened because he got sick. Now, John Wayne had major prominence well before he was a top 10 box office star in 1949. That year, he was battling Abbott Costello, Bing Crosby, and Bob Hope for the top four. He was number four at the time, followed by Gary Cooper, Cary Grant, Betty Grable, Esther Williams, Humphrey Bogart, and Clark Gable. But 1950 and 51, and we'll get that to second why, he was number one. He passed Bob Hope in 1950 and stayed ahead of Martin and Lewis in 1951. Now, Martin and Lewis took over in 52. Wayne was third, but Gary Cooper, on the backs of High Noon and other key movies, became the new number one. But 1954, again, he knocked off Martin and Lewis, and Cooper was third. You got to understand at the time, John Wayne was doing war movies, westerns, what he called action films. Now, 1955, for obvious reasons, Grace Kelly became one of the most popular female actors of her era. She had moved past John Wayne to number two, with Jimmy Stewart as number one. 56, Bridge on the River Kwai, Holden was first, but Wayne was a close second. 57, because of Rock Hudson's many key movies, he became number one, with Wayne at number two. Now, 58 was a misnomer because he wasn't doing much in that year, but he came back with a fever between 1959 and 1963. He became number 8 on the list in 1959, top 10 in 1960, 61 top 4 behind Taylor, Hudson, and Day, and Day, Hudson, and Cary Grant. Doris Day again, number one for a third of 4 years in 63. Wayne was a close second. Now, at this time, again, Doris Day and Rock Hudson and John Wayne were battling for the number one. He was number four in 64. John Wayne was number two in 65, and because of James Bond, that's why Connery finished ahead of them. Now, 1966, he was top seven. 67, he was top eight, and top four again in 68. 69, he was the number two draw because of all the key westerns he was in. He was fourth place in 1970, and because of True Grit and other key movies, he became number one, beating out Clint Eastwood. In the next 2 years, Eastwood was number one, with Wayne number four in 1972 and number nine in 1973. And you're wondering why from late 1940s to early 73 he was there. And I'm going to give you you tell me why, and I'll explain to it. Now, she wore a yellow ribbon, put him really on top. Then Sands of Iwo Jima. Rio Grande, of course, in 1950, flying the Leathernecks, 51, the Quiet Man, 52, Island in the Sky in 53, Hondo in 1953, the Conqueror in 56, the Searchers in 56, Jet Pilot in 57, Rio Bravo in 59, 1960 the Alamo, then Wagon Train, the Comancheros, The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, Atari, The Longest Day, How the West Was Won, Donovan's Reef, McClintock, The Greatest Story Ever Told, The Sons of Katie Elder, Cast a Giant Shadow, El Dorado, The War Wagon, The Green Berets, Hellfighters, True Grit, The Undefeated, Chisholm, Rio Lobo, Big Jake, The Cowboys, Cancel My Reservation, and The Train Robbers, and Cahill, U.S. Marshal. So hit after hit after hit after hit after hit. Now, I think the reason why John Wayne remained so popular for all these years is because no matter who his co-stars were, whether it be family or friends or colleagues, you paid 50 cents to a dollar for two movies. The first John Wayne movie is going to be tremendous, and in some cases it was back-to-back John Wayne movies. He wasn't scared to take on major roles, and like I said, war movies, western, period pieces, action. But I think to me, his highest level had to be in the early 1960s, and I tell you why. When he started becoming a major producer and choosing his own projects. You look at the Alamo all the way to the longest day in '62. There was a lot going on. Of course, How the West was one. The idea about John Wayne losing popularity. John Wayne was always at the top level with the draws. He drew in kids, he drew in women, men. There was a lot of good action stars became bigger stars riding on his coattails. But it was so weird, like I said, for the straight ahead American icon. Like I said, there's very few comparison. 24 years of being, again, no matter if you put John Wayne on the marquee, only really Clint Eastwood started to take over around after The Beguiled and some of the key movies. But the 1970s, the later part, belonged to Eastwood. But John Wayne was John Wayne. That's how it worked. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you have a chance to watch some of John Wayne's work between 49 and 73, which I figure that's a quarter century of excellence. There's a lot going on there. Only 2 Oscar nominations, of course. But when I say True Grit, even though it came out in '69, it was drawing big numbers well into the early 1970s. And I saw many movies where True Grit was a second of a John Wayne bill. It was very weird. And you know what? All in those top tens, it's all a matter of perspective, as we say. They say box office popularity. Every major actor of the last 24 years of that 25-year period are on that list. And I'll give an example who was behind him in 1971, and this is something to look at. Clint Eastwood, Paul Newman, Steve McQueen, George C. Scott, Dustin Hoffman, Walter Matthau, Ali McGraw, Sean Connery, and Lee Marvin. Holy frig, they sold millions and millions and millions of tickets. And you look what happened with John Wayne in 1954. This is what was going on. There's Martin Lewis behind him, Gary Cooper, Jimmy Stewart, Glenn Ford, Martin Lewis twice. Marilyn Monroe, Kim Novak, and Frank Sinatra. And it was a very Bing Crosby was around there too. But the ladies and gentlemen, like I said, 50 and 51. I mean, even Bob Hope couldn't last. Bob Hope was in top tens for years. So the idea of John Wayne fading away, they kept on waiting and waiting and waiting. It never happened. And 1958 was that key year. And just to recap here, you had Glenn Ford, Elizabeth Taylor, Jerry Lewis, Marlon Brando, Rock Hudson, William Holden, Brigitte Bardot, Yul Brynner, Jimmy Stewart, and Frank Sinatra. But all those 10 owe a lot to Frank Sinatra because he was the guy that was, to John Wayne, because he was the guy that drew people at the theater. But like I said, he only had 1 year off, and it was just a couple of, low-key roles, but just tremendous. But he had a lot in the can. So John Wayne, again, the number one movie star, in my opinion, of all time. And when we talk about John Wayne, everybody says he was worth every cent you put down to watch him. And he's, like I said, how good of an actor he was, he didn't have to act. He was John Wayne. Thanks for listening. If you like what we're doing, our vintage podcast, let us know with a like, comment, subscribe, or share. Bye.